Hello, hello. This is Chris with Executive Health Solutions. I wanted to explain a little bit about discs today. It's very common for people to be told that they have a herniated disc, a disc bulge, all kinds of degenerative disc disease, all these things. When you see these on MRI and on findings that you have a disc bulge, I just want to explain it so that it's not so scary. It can be very scary, actually. So what I'll do is I'm going to try to share my screen so you can see exactly what I'm looking at. Here we go, and then let's start with one of these pictures here. So here, if you can see, this is a good picture of a lumbar, which means low back joint. So you can see the bone, the part here. This would be the back, the part that sticks out the back that you can feel with your finger and the little bumps in the back. Here's the stomach or the front. A normal looking disc has these different layers. The outside layer here is called the annulus. This is like thick, ringed, cross-fibered dam that holds this nucleus or this goo in. So on imaging, what they're looking for is they're looking at this type of thing where there's been a tear or a defect either from long, overuse, with age. It could be a one-time thing with twisting or lifting or a motor vehicle accident. Something happened where there's a tear and there's a disruption in this natural part of the annular wall. Now, normally it's not all the layers. You see here, this outer layer is still intact. When the outer layer is still intact and this piece of disc material starts pushing out and occupying space it doesn't belong in, that's normally a very fixable and changeable injury. Now, what can happen is you can see here the yellow stringy deal is the nerve. So if this does put pressure on that nerve, you will feel pain not only in the back, but also possibly or probably, if this is being irritated, into a certain part of the leg, depending on what level where this disc injury is at. And I'll show you a picture of the different dermatomes so you can kind of see why that pain is very specific. It's just on the back of the leg. It's just on the side of the leg. Maybe it's just on the front of the leg. And it's normally one-sided like that. It's very normal to be just on the left or just on the right. This one happens to be just on the left side. Nerves do not like compression, tension, or temperature changes. So, I mean, if they're inflamed or in this case, it's irritated because of compression or being pushed on there. Let me show you another one here. Let's go back to here would be another picture of the different layers. Okay, here's more of a side view. So these end plates mean this is the bone. There's the bone. Here's that. The NP stands for nucleus propulsus. All right, and then here's your cross-fibered right through there, the annular wall. And so what can happen, and there you can see by the orientation of these fibers, they are kind of crossed like very strong. But with age, sometimes you get little fissures or these things start to deteriorate and degenerate, or repeated posture, sustained movement, sitting all the time, being forward flexed all the time, poor posture can wear on these guys, and then that eventually starts to push into that spot. Let's move on to let's see if I can get this one a little bit bigger. If I can get him a little bigger, I can show you what I mean by those dermatomes. Here would be another picture of, so this one's more straight back into the spinal cord, which would be a different level. That would be a whole different kind of symptoms. Here's more of a lateral one or a posterior lateral just to one side. This would be bilateral. You'd have symptoms on both sides. That would be clearly much worse. Okay, here's a good picture of some of that fraying and tearing of the annular wall. What happens with either repeated micro traumas or possibly a one-time, accident or injury. Here's another one here of the progression of how these things move. So remember now, there's no nerves for pain on the very inside of this disc. You can stab this whole thing with a knife and you're not going to feel anything. The nociceptors are the pain receptors that cause what's called discogenic pain. That just means pain that originates from the disc, are on the outer side here. So As this thing moves, you're not going to get any pain until it starts to irritate or push into the fibers of this annulus, and that hurts right in the back. Now, clearly here, there's no nerve root impingement or irritation. See, even here, it hurts there, but the nerve roots themselves are not being irritated or pressed against. And the difference comes when you get, it's a whole other topic of conversation, a whole other talk would be an extruded or a sequestrated. When pieces of the disc actually escape the annular wall, that's a little bit different presentation. Maybe it's definitely different in its ability to heal. It's not as easy for that situation to be fixed conservatively. Still possible, but these tend to reduce very easily with very specific movements and exercises. These will, over time, tend to. They could also be surgical candidates. Just depends. Let me see if I can go. I saw a way to go bigger on that. No, let me do it on that picture. See, those will give me like a bigger way to do it. Let's see if we get a different one. There's some more examples of the tearing of that annular wall and how this material can then take up that space. It occupies space it doesn't belong in. And when it does that, you can either get, central, right in the middle of the low back, off, which is just common, or just off to the right, just off to the left, low back pain, which is very common. As it continues, which is why you want to get that taken care of right away, it has to have a professional help you with that, because as that thing starts to progress and get worse, it could start pushing more and more pressure, and then you get the nerve root symptoms. And there we go. So I really want to show this to you here. Let's get this a little bit bigger. There we go. So in the low back, you see you have these, they're all named for the level at which you have 5 lumbar vertebral bodies and discs. So between those would be the disc, L1, L2, 2, 3, L3, L4, L4, L5, and L5S1. That's the last disc in the system. After that, it's closed down. But you can see here when you have, let's just say L4, L5, when you have irritation to one of those nerve roots on the left side, you can see where that dermatomas, this purple color here, as this rolls down, you can see where that L4 and L5 distribution goes. So if the pain feels like it's a line that goes on the side of your leg, kind of wraps around the knee and goes to the toe, that's why that is L5. If it's more irritated on the S1, it's straight down the back of the leg, into the calf, and possibly kind of into the heel or outside of the foot. And if it's more in the upper part of the lumbar spine, 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there, you get this pain that you feel either wraps around in the front of your hip or into your thigh, which makes the diagnosis of these conservatively very important, and at times a little bit tricky with differentiating the hip and the low back in the anterior one. So in this L2, L3, if you have anterior hip pain or lateral pain out here, you have to really go to someone that understands the difference between a hip problem and a lumbar problem. They can mask each other, but there are very specific moves and examination techniques that will tease that out and make sure you are dealing with either a lumbar spine or low back or a hip. And you have, even if you go to the doctor and say, oh, you have a hip trochanteric bursitis or your hip's bad on an x-ray. So what if it's bad on an x-ray? If you don't, you have to check this lumbar spine out. You have to screen it. Even if someone, I've had people that only come in, they just have calf pain, or they just have hamstring pain, or they just have this IT band pain out here, right? So, oh yeah, I have a bad IT band. No back pain whatsoever. It doesn't have to follow this exact pattern. Some people have different peripheral, which just means away from the middle, pains. And so if you don't do that, that due diligence, and you are required, I'm required, I have to check that out and make sure, because I don't want to miss something. I've moved the lumbar spine or the low back around with people that just have hamstring pain, or just have IT pain, or just have calf pain. And every once in a while, a couple times a year, all of a sudden, you move them around there and that pain disappears. And the look on their face is like, but I was told I had this. How did that happen? Why did that happen? I have calf pain. How can I move my back and the pain is gone? And you have to explain to them that, that's from that little piece of disc. You feel the pain as a referred pain down into here, and that's why. But if you don't look at that, you'll miss those. And that is That's not good. You can't miss those. People have pain. There's a look at a healthy one right there. Here you can see at the different levels what that looks like: 2, 3, 4, 5, S1, and then down between S1 and S2, that's actually fused right there in adults. So we don't have a disc right there. That's the last one we have. And you know, if you're a betting person and you want to take bets on where these problems will occur, if 90-some% will be between 4, 5, or 5 and 1. So I mean, you're gonna, 80-90% are gonna happen right here. You get a couple that happen up here, but almost all of them are right down there. So that's kind of what I wanted to explain to you guys today. Here's another picture of the different. You see how they have different orientation of the fibers. So you get a nice, almost like plies, or like the sidewalls on a tire, like to help all the different angles, so that this stuff here cannot escape and push through that. Our body does a really good job, but sometimes it does happen where that thing takes up space it's not supposed to be in. And yeah, here's again just kind of those pictures of those other ones there. So that's probably about as long as I want to make this video, is just to show you guys what that looks like, and explain to you what it means when someone says, oh, you have a disc bulge, or you have a herniated disc. Or now let's remember, the common phrase is a slip disc. The discs don't slip. I mean, they can move and they can take up space, but there's no slippage involved. It's just kind of a misnomer. But if you have any other questions, please leave comments below in the description, or any questions you have, and I'll be happy to explain anything else that you had questions about. Thank you very much.